Welcome back to the Decision Lab Party Peeps. Today we're doing something a little bit different. No founder, no brand rep, just us and a product that's been blowing up in the fitness space, smelling salts. I've seen this a couple of times. I'm a CrossFitter myself. I've seen it with powerlifting, a powerlifting friend of mine. I think that's one of the first times we saw it. Was Trevor, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so my buddy Trevor. So specifically today, we're looking at Ward smelling salts because it is widely accessible and kind of blowing up right now. You can even get it at Dick's Sporting Goods. It's kind of wild. So we're going to break down some of the claims, what the science says, and whether it's something that's actually worth your money, something you should look at, if it's safe, all of those types of things. Let's dive in. We'll put all the details and like website and stuff in the description, but let's start in here. Why should we care about this, CJ?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I found this out like kind of through Trevor. I didn't really know anything about smelling salts beforehand, but the second he was using them, I was like, I kind of wonder what the science is behind this. And so I went in and wrote this episode, and I was looking for smelling salts band, and I just picked the one that I felt was most widely available. You know, super easy to buy. You don't have to be in the fitness space to access it. So starting with what is smelling salts, here's what smelling salts are and why you should care in 60 seconds. Smelling salts are stimulants made up of ammonium carbonate that have historically been used as fainting remedies, but have recently gained popularity to help athletes get a boost in high intensity sports like football, powerlifting, or CrossFit. So they are, taking a hit of this and getting kind of like an adrenaline rush that will help them in whatever sport they may be doing that's like a high intensity.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the biggest thing that people should be aware of is smelling salts is kind of a messed up name. When you look at what's happening in your nervous system, your olfactory nerve is a cranial nerve and deals with smell, which is really important. But smelling salts act on your trigeminal nerve more than your olfactory nerve, and which goes right into your brainstem and is where alertness lives. Your reticular activating system, your respiratory systems like the medulla, your pons, all this really interesting stuff that's vital for your literal survival. And so it is not smelling salts, like the smelling portion that you're sniffing it in for sure, but it is not really about the smell as much. It is really more like an alarm system. You're setting off an alarm system inside of your nervous system. And that's what's happening when you take a sniff of this stuff, because it can bypass your higher cognition, like your prefrontal cortex and all that kind of stuff, like rapidly. And so your brain is really acting before you choose to. And it's a humongous, the reason that this works so well, air quotes, is because it's activating your sympathetic nervous system in an extreme way. It rapidly releases norepinephrine, adrenaline, increases your heart rate, increases your blood pressure, and it's like you're being forced to wake up or die response is essentially what is happening neurologically. And then your same thing in relation to, or not same thing, but like arousal and attention, like snap. Okay. It's like what you feel when you take a sniff of that is like sudden alertness. You feel like a snap, like a mental snap to type feeling. Your focus is heightened. It's really kind of interesting, but it is absolutely not, it does not have to do necessarily with the smell, because ammonia and these other chemicals mimic toxic inhalation, which is extraordinarily dangerous for your survival, which is why it hits you so deep and so quickly.
Yeah, that's like the super baseline of what I had written down is it's like this gas is essentially used to irritate your membranes. And the goal of this is increased respiratory flow. So it's not just like the mental aspect, but also physically, your body goes into fight or flight. What happens?
Right.
You're taking deeper breaths. And so
that's
like
important because it's not shifting your muscle physiology. Like it is not making you stronger in the sense that your muscles are growing, like literally stronger. It is like increasing your drive and your arousal, and that can increase your force output kind of indirectly, but it doesn't make your muscles bigger, if you will, necessarily. So I think that's something that's interesting too. They don't wake you up, they scare your brain awake is the bottom line.
So why are we looking at Ward specifically? As I mentioned previously, this is just the most widely accessible one that I found in doing my research. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and get into the origin story, the founder, all of that. So that we're running this like a regular TDL episode. We just didn't actually have anybody on for this one. It's more of like a product review from our perspective on should you get this. So here is the backstory behind Ward. Everything that I found was from like their website, interviews, and just public information. It was founded in 2019 by founder CEO Patrick Inglot. A fun note on this that I put for me was I could not find his name on the website. His name was not available anywhere. The only way that I found this that later led me to like different interviews and whatnot on Ward was I found an FDA warning letter to him that had Ward on it. So that's always like a great start and should give you like a fun little preview of what the rest of this episode looks like. We always go through, the aha moment of why founders claim that they started the product, which I was able to find in some other interviews. Created the product, took it to a powerlifting meet, and company continued to grow. This is a Canada-based company, so they were reaching out to like athletes in the Calgary area. Got an actual partnership with an athletics team, which I think is huge for hockey with the Calgary Flames. And then this has led to like a brand new hockey expansion of the product, which is really how they've been able to grow and kind of how this is getting more widespread. So they've got regular smelling salts and they've got like the hockey variation of this that's kind of like blowing up in Canada and then it has commercial success in the US.
Nice. I like that. Sounds like, I mean, really, it sounds like, as far as I guess the problem they're trying to solve is they wanted better smelling, higher quality, better packaging is what
Yes.
you kind of wrote in our notes. And then they're trying to create their goal ultimately, or their mission that they at least shared publicly, is a premium smelling salt to support the growth of sports competition in North America. I think that's interesting because it's not necessarily like they're like, this is, well, I guess we'll wait till we get to claims, but they're not necessarily saying that this is good for your brain or this is good for your nervous system or this is whatever, but
No.
it
No.
can maybe increase sport performance, question mark. I guess we'll
Yeah,
see.
they're definitely leaning heavily to sports performance. Something that I found interesting is in the interview where they're kind of going into that mission a little bit more, or that's available on their page, is supporting the growth of sports competition is not just, like giving athletes like a higher impact thing that will help them along their way. It's like literally like reinvesting their money, like sponsoring sports teams and whatnot, which on the surface seems like a really great thing. I think where my drawback on this a little bit is like they're sponsoring a lot of youth teams. And it's like, I don't know if,
Oh,
if this is
geez.
something that, we don't know if this is safe for adults or really know the science behind that. I'm a little bit sketchy because like on surface, like, yes, it's great to reinvest in your community. It's great to put money towards things that are, going to be super helpful towards kids. But I'm not sure that this is the product to do it. So as far as their baseline mission, I think it's a cool baseline mission. As far as like the nitty gritty and the details on that, ooh, a little shifty.
Yeah, dude. Okay. That's good to know. Just activating the sympathetic nervous system of little children consistently. I'm not sure that is the best
Right. I don't
use
think
of
that
our
they're
time.
marketing. I don't think that they're marketing to that group. I think it's just as like something to like bolster their brand and get their like name in arenas and stuff.
Well, yeah. Well, and if they see their favorite athletes using these things, it is a
Right.
natural conclusion that kids may use it more. So
Yeah.
it's good to know. What's the gap? What's the gap in the market they keep talking about?
Gap in the market. This is something that we go over with all of our other brands. What they have said is it's just that existing smelling salts weren't strong enough. Now, when
Great.
we get into the science section, we'll look at what maybe that means a little bit more. Something else that we look at is, who is falling through the cracks by their own admission. No one was really falling through the cracks. So this isn't solving, some problem that like didn't exist before that needed to have somebody come in and intervene. There was an existing client pool of, athletes using smelling salts and nobody felt that they were strong enough. So like we said, before, their whole shtick is stronger and better packaging. And so as far as the evidence to, support their gap, as far as smelling salts actually being able to be made stronger, I think maybe you ought to take this one.
Yeah, it's sketchy to say the least. I mean, not necessarily sketchy, but as far as the effect that they have on your nervous system, I think that is something that you just need to take a sniff to realize that is actually happening. Like it does affect your nervous system in a way that you feel. As far as like, do they actually help with your athletic performance? There's consistent research on this. Like as far as power, endurance, reaction time, coordination, there hasn't really been any statistically significant performance gains. And sometimes motor control is actually worse because they're over aroused sometimes. So, and again, like I said earlier, they don't increase or improve your literal muscles, right? Or the myelination of your nervous system, which is what like elite athletes have more myelinated neural pathways and physiology that they've trained over thousands of hours to like be able to perform in a more fine-tuned way than the average nervous system, which is why they're so much better. And this taking a smelling salt isn't going to just mystically create that myelination and those years and years of repetition, that muscle coordination, the physiology, all of those things. It can maybe give you a little bit of a boost potentially, but research doesn't necessarily even support that. No, at least clear randomized control studies and things like that yet. So
Yes. What I was able to
yeah,
find on this, which as far as athletes, like the actual interesting thing is they bring up a whole lot, is that widespread professional use, especially NFL for these products. So that's also insane. But as far as the research that I went into, looking into their claims, smelling salts are not understood to be made up of two compounds. They have sodium carbonate and ammonium chloride. And you can't really find an ingredients list for these, at least when I went through their products. And so to claim that these are being made stronger without any additional like additives is a little bit suspicious to me, because it's like, okay, well then what is actually setting this apart? We don't know. And then the research that I was looking into on this, there is like one study that I found that's great. That's ammonia inhalants use, misuse, and role in sports performance, and it says that essentially that all this helps with is increased power in like anaerobics, as you mentioned before. So it's really about that like lung capacity, but there's no additional benefit, even though you are like in this aroused state, like Cody said.
right. And if that, like that's one study. Like most studies do not necessarily suggest that. And something I'd like to point out, because
Yes.
I've had freaking 3 concussions, is that absolutely do not use these after a concussion. Like this is like the number one worst case scenario ever. If someone just got smacked in the freaking head, they're laying passed out on the floor, and then you put a smelling salt under their head, like the flexion of their neck when they react to it is not good. Because their brain is just damaged. It's increasing the pressure in their brain, like intracranial pressure, and it can mask concussion symptoms. So sure, they can get back in the game, maybe, but should they? Absolutely not. It is so bad. So please, God, do not use these if you're thinking about, or sorry, if you have a concussion, think you might have one, or so you see someone laying on the ground after getting smacked in the head, like God,
Which
that'd be
that's
so
super
terrible.
interesting, especially just considering the sports that these are used in. I mean, like I said, they're looking at like football, hockey, super physical contact sports where people are definitely taking hits.
100%. It's scary, dude, that this is something that's just being sniffed. It sucks too, because what is true is the arousal and the alertness, the sympathetic, that does happen. And so people are like, oh, well, it must work. But that is such a bias in thinking, a thinking error. It's not even funny. Yeah, careful.
So next we're gonna break down like the competitive edge on like why does this have commercial success? What actually sets this brand apart? Because we like to look at the marketing and see like, okay, how much of this product is just marketing? Is it a real innovation, or have they just been able to position themselves well in the market? So when we look at competition, I loved looking at the competition because all of these have such stupid names. Actually, the number one was
No, CJ. It was.
oh, okay.
That's what it was. You put it in
Right.
all caps with 3 H's and 2 exclamation points. That's absolutely
Yeah,
how
I
they.
didn't want to give him the satisfaction,
Well,
of
I'll be the guinea pig. Actually, I will
so
not be a guinea pig because I will never use
no.
these. My sympathetic nervous system is activated plenty enough already.
Yeah, slight spoiler because we usually go through these and tell you like whether this is a product we would use or not, but it's I think a little too sketchy here. All right, so their competition, their major competition, which I'll keep it professional, but I did put as a side note, endorsed by Joe Rogan, who is, we'll say at the very least, not well positioned in his scientific opinions. We'll leave it there. I went through their ingredients list just to give you guys an example of what this might look like. So it's water, sodium chloride, carbonate, and ammonia. So the way the smelling salts actually work, which is an important thing to note, is you add water to them. And that is like an activation. So the way that these are packaged is it's packaged as like the dry ammonium. They're adding water to it. That's like the smelling factor. And that's like what releases it and activates it from, the warehouse once it gets to you, which is, why the Ward was able to create this like hockey sensitive version. It's not really about the product itself. That's where the packaging comes from, is it was getting, like drying out too quickly, being in like a cold environment or something to that extent. And so they created like a hockey package for it. It's not actually for the sport itself, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So what this brand says that makes them different, again, they don't really say anything other than they just are stronger, but they don't have anything necessarily to back that up other than like anecdotal details of people coming to them and telling them that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if some of the packaging or the mechanism of delivery is keeping it drier so it's higher potency when it actually hits your nose, maybe that's maybe that's kind of what they're hitting on. I'd love to talk to them about this, because if that is, I mean, that that's not a wild claim. Like if
No.
if you're getting a more potent version of the smelling salt when it actually hits your nose, like because less of it's dried out and less of it is untainted, more of it is untainted, then maybe
Yeah.
that's their differentiator. That's
I agree
interesting.
that like makes sense for the like hockey specific version on really filling that is like a gap in the market that they have been able to fill is like, okay, if hockey players are using these, but the packaging is made for hockey players. But I mean, these claims are kind of like widespread across their other products, which don't seem to have any difference to their competitors, really. Like I said, there's
Uh,
no additives or anything like that as far
so
as
it's the
like the
same
ingredients
chemically.
list.
It's the same. It's like the same ingredients
Chemically,
necessarily. It's just
yes.
which I mean, as we know, like there's a difference between a Ford and a Ferrari, but they both have four wheels and an engine. So brand does shift and change kind of people's perspective and stuff. So, but leaning into that, I think is where, or they're leaning maybe too far into that, trying to make some type of global claim about
Right.
ingredients when in reality it's like branding.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is a note I made. So I went through like their website, I listened to podcasts, other things like that. And so they're saying it's stronger and longer lasting, but there is like no specific claim as to what is actually making that happen, which, you know, is something that we revisit on TBL a lot. If it seems too good to be true or like they are not able to back that up, proceed with caution.
Dude, the other thing based on what you're saying, like their storage mechanism, which this is just fishy language if they're doing this. If they're saying it's stronger and longer lasting, meaning it arrives to you stronger because it's packaged differently and it lasts longer in the bottle because it's packaged differently, that is vastly different than the effect of the salt on your nervous system
Right.
lasting longer. So that is some wild wording if that's what they meant.
Right. I mean, the other thing is like, I mean, I hate to give credit to any brand, but at least the competitor brand like has their ingredients list made public too. I could not find ingredients on their website for what is actually in these products. Even clicking on the product and, you know, going through like the pictures and such, like it's not listed.
Yeah, that's not good. I don't like that. I don't
No.
like that at all. All right, let's talk about credibility here. I mean, you put some stuff in here about the founder. Like, talk to me about this.
Right, like as previously mentioned, I couldn't find his name on the website or anything. I had to find it through an FDA warning letter, which led me to a podcast he had done talking about this product, which I mean, I already think is not a great start. FDA warning letter aside, it's very strange, even in our space where we kind of come across brands that are not necessarily well positioned or super scientific or anything like that. Like their founders usually want to put themselves like forward.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that there is no founder to be found on their website or story or origin or anything like that is crazy.
But you did find it. Patrick Inglot.
Mm-hmm.
Nglot. Patrick Inglot.
Right, which
Okay.
I couldn't. Whenever we go through this, so we go through the like founder credentials, relevant experience, all of those sorts of things. I went through his LinkedIn, which is, you know, like public and is connected to Ward, to find what the relevant experience is. What is the background? Is it even in sports? Is it in science? And I just ended up writing down lol.
Yeah, I noticed that. I saw
Founder
that.
credentials and red flags.
I mean, his relevant experience is that he's been a salesperson for a very long time. I'd love to talk to this guy. I mean, he looks chill. I wonder what he'd be like.
Right. It's
Okay, so no,
and I
like,
mean, like,
it's
there's
not
nothing
like
wrong
he's
with
got
this.
like a degree in something like exercise physiology or neuroscience or something like that. But maybe, which you
At
don't
least not
necessarily have to
publicly
have.
available.
Okay,
No.
it does look like he's a lifter and a power lifter and such. So that does give. I would imagine he mentioned he started this when he took it to a lifting competition. So I mean, you don't have to have a degree necessarily to start a company. That's kind of a ridiculous like framing necessarily. Like, but at least talk about this, like being a power lifter or something like that. Like that'd be interesting to learn.
Yeah, and I mean, 100%. Like we come across a lot of people that are like a lot in the sales space, and they essentially want to like found something scientific because they identify this gap in the market. You know, salespeople are good at that, and want to create a solution to help. I think where this gets dicey, I mean, is there's no like team information available about anybody working for Ward on their website or their LinkedIn, which is just completely empty
Yeah.
except for him. And so you can't find anybody working for this company that might have the credentials. I mean, a lot of the times, you know, if you've been a long time listener, you'll know that we have like chief science officers, for example, that will come forward and speak to us because if they be the founder, it just isn't as in the space.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I'd love to see more about the founder in here. It just seems like it would make sense. If you're this passionate about the product or service, get out there in front of it. Maybe that doesn't click for everybody. Who knows? Let's talk research on this real quick.
Let's
In the lab results here, let's talk some science. CJ, break this down for me a little bit. We
Oh
already
my God,
kind of talked about this.
I would love to start with what the FDA warning letter was about. We have
Yeah, please do. I've been curious about that ever since you mentioned it.
So essentially, what this is sorry, I've been dragging you all along for so long, had to clickbait a little bit. It's for an unapproved new drug and misbranded drug violations. And so it's essentially like they are intended to affect the structure or function of the body. It has to be past like a certain test for this or labeling. It's really in the labeling, which, as we previously mentioned, as far as I can find, there is no labeling. And so they are taking claims from like their website, from their social medias, from their Facebook, and laid out the intended uses. And the FDA is like, but it doesn't, there's no evidence for this. You're not being transparent, essentially. Like, they have not done the correct labeling on these. So I mean, that's essentially what it is you have to, investigate, adjust for the FDA, and then get your stuff labeled correctly to not be slapped by them again, which is something that we just went through with the CBD American Shaman episode. So,
dude, speaking of CBD, one of the arguments apparently is that you're not putting anything in your body, you're just smelling it and activating your mucous membranes. Like, what kind of argument is that? If I smoke crack cocaine, I'm inhaling and or even just weed. Weed has been shown. People think weed's not addictive. Weed is wild, dude. But that is a wild argument for its safety, because it is absolutely affecting your nervous system. That is the only research that is relevant here, is the research that suggests it does actually activate your nervous system. So anytime you're doing that is absolutely affecting you.
And I mean, like, the thing here is, even for the argument that you're not putting anything in your body, one of the things that they got in trouble with the FDA for is they have made claims on their social medias, apparently, that, this can be used as like diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease. Couldn't find like these specific, they don't post, like, make the specific post known, like, whenever the FDA does this. I would have loved to go and look at like where they're specifically pulling this out of.
What on earth? Oh my God, that is wild. That's nuts. There's no research about it curing, preventing, or anything like that, except hurting you worse if you have a concussion, especially. So, okay, well, I mean, you should have just put freaking sketchy as shit in the research section of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I mentioned there is like one source I have found that has like deep dove on smelling salts and what their impact would be. What I would make a note on this source, which of course I will link everything in the description below, is that what has been studied is outdated. And that's awful, because you have high intensity, high profile athletes, NFL players using these on the sidelines every single Sunday. And we've got like no research to back it up.
Yeah, dude, this is wild.
At the very best, outdated research.
I can't remember, Doctor. It's escaping me. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
But who works with F1 drivers?
Yeah, and he validates this stuff. I'm going to ask him about this. I wonder what he thinks about smelling salts, but there's no freaking way an F1 driver would want to be doing that. All right, let's talk marketing versus reality here then. Like, are there any claims that are based in anything other than vibes?
I wrote down it is all vibes based.
Okay.
I couldn't find, as mentioned, I couldn't find ingredients listed. I couldn't even find testimonials on their website. I found, in that podcast, which again, I'll link below, they're talking about like anecdotally, this is stronger and better, but they don't have that made public anywhere, if true. So
got it. And it doesn't look like the reviews are working very well for them either. Like, banned in boxing, the NFL, and then the FDA literally tells you that they could lead to coughing, airway constriction, eye, nose, ear, and throat irritation. And then they've even received reports of shortness of breath, seizures, migraines, vomiting, diarrhea, and fainting from consumers after using these types of products. Alrighty then.
Right, and there's another different FDA source for that. Something that I wanted to really go into doing the research for this episode is how fucking sketchy their website is. Oh my God, it's insane. Not only is there no information about anything, but I would just like to point out this terms of service that they throw on their website, which is insane. We always go on their websites to see if like claims are matching up and stuff, and oh my God, this is crazy. But it essentially says, we are not responsible if information made available on this site is not accurate, complete, or current. That's how this begins.
That's the first sentence. We're on,
in
like,
this
buckle up, people. Holy shit. What? The material on this site is provided for general information and only should be relied upon and should only and general information only and should not be relied upon or used as the sole basis for making decisions without consulting primary or more accurate, more complete, more timely sources of information. What on earth is happening right now?
Which, as previously mentioned, do not necessarily exist.
Oh, dude. This is any reliance on the material on this site is at your own risk. The site may contain certain historical information. Historical information not necessarily is not current and provided for your reference only. We reserve the right to modify the context of this site at any time. No, that's not that unusual, but we have no obligation to update information. You agree that this is your responsibility to monitor changes on our site. So let me just make sure I put my little Google reminder. Hey, if this site changes ever in all of its history, just let me know. That's wild, dude.
Right. And then ends with, occasionally there may be information on our site or in the service that contains typographical errors, inaccuracies, or omissions that may relate to product descriptions, pricing, promotions, offers, product shipping changes, transit times, and availability. So even the baseline thing that you may be able to get on this website might not be right. Pricing might not be right.
Dude,
ETA
this is insane. And this is a real brand. Like, this is a brand that is real.
Right. Yes. And I would like to point out, marketing-wise, we have to study legality to make sure we're not crossing any lines. This does not hold up in court whatsoever. So if somebody comes and says, like, hey, you have your price misrepresented, they can't use this for anything because there's no user consent even on these terms of service. It's just a page. It's not like you click anything and you say, like, oh, I verify that I've read through this. It's just a page.
Oh boy. Alrighty then.
Yeah.
Love that. That's Facebook crawls your website and makes you have a terms of service before you can send them to your website. So I would imagine they literally just copy and paste something or use ChatGPT or something like that and pasted it in there, it sounds like. So that Facebook, when they crawl it, they see a terms of service or some shit. Like, all right, let's move to lab results, dude. This is wild. Like, the Decision Lab is proud to announce its first sponsor, Apollo Neuro. They are not only TDL approved, but Chloe and I have been using these for years. You probably heard us talk about them and show you our Apollos on the podcast, okay? If you fall asleep fast but wake up at 2 a.m. with your mind racing, or your wearable keeps telling you that you're stressed without actually helping you, the Apollo is for you, okay? It doesn't just track your stress and sleep, it helps you take action. It's built on a decade of research, which we break down in depth with the founder, Dr. Raven, who is an MD, PhD, on the Apollo episode that we have with him. Apollo learns your stress patterns, calms your nervous system in real time, and helps you stay asleep. Users get up to 60 extra minutes of sleep per night, plus 40% less stress and 25% better focus. Apollo was just featured in Forbes for their vagus nerve science, and they just published a new randomized pilot study suggesting it is the first wearable that helps prevent burnout. Freaking crazy. Go check that out, okay? Decision Lab listeners get $90 off. Hit the link in the description, grab yours. This is where we get to break down like what we truly think and whether or not this is something you should use or not. Considering the hot mess of this entire conversation, buy, not buy is extraordinarily clear to me. Do not buy. Do not try. Do so at your own risk. It's just wild.
I wouldn't buy either, but I mean, like, real quickly, I would like you to elaborate on your perspective, like, as a CrossFitter. Like, why would you not buy? What are the advantages of not buying? What do you see in your gym?
The advantages of not buying are my mental and emotional stability, A. And then in my own gym, I don't see people using like stimulant, or I mean, really stimulants like this. They at CrossFit competitions and stuff, sure, I maybe have seen that previously and such, powerlifting, yeah. But it's not, I don't see it every single day at my CrossFit gym. And it's not something you have to do CrossFit at all. There are far better ways, like warming up, going on a run, caffeine, even pre-workout, I would suggest over this. I don't take pre-workout even, but I think it'd be a better alternative than just this wild concept. Like, so no, I don't see it. I don't really see a point of it. Maybe if you're doing CrossFit competition, it would make more sense, but I don't compete. Like, I'm not I don't do that necessarily. And then for basketball, where I do compete, I just couldn't, this just would not make any sense for basketball. It's longer steady state output that I just, if I felt the way that it describes you'd feel when you do this, I think I'd puke in the middle of a basketball game. So I wouldn't try this or use this. Trevor, my buddy Trevor, is a powerlifter and he uses it and had some. And I didn't even want, I was like, dude, don't even open that near me. Like, I don't want to do this and try this. Like, so he had some and I was just like, no, thank you.
Right. It's a little too unregulated. We're going to move into pros and risks. So what stood out? What concerns should consumers watch out for?
I mean, the marketing language, I mean, honestly, just the sketchy language in general, the terms and service that we talked about, the lack of science, like of clear science that talks about this, and clarity around that. If there's not science and it's just something to help you feel better, and it's just supposed to be something like that you're taking at your own risk, cool. But making claims about performance when there isn't research to support those claims just doesn't make sense. And it's even more devious in this because the research does suggest that you will get the feeling. You will feel the thing, but that doesn't translate to the output or the performance increase that they're claiming. And so it's very devious because you could get this product and feel a difference, but not, and so that you would further trick yourself into maybe believing it's working. So that's messed up.
Love these follow-up questions that we've added as part of like our adjustments to TDO. Is this something you test once or something you need to commit to? Because this is something we've asked people to watch out for.
I mean, if you're going to try it over time and track your output, track your power output, track your if you want to test the effect and feel the difference, you'll feel it after one time. If that's your goal, do it once. Like if you want to know what it feels like. If you want to actually increase your performance, then do it more than once. Do it and track how it's if it's working or not. So that's what I would take. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah. I mean, do you think this is addictive? Like, do you think you get addicted to maybe not the product itself, but chasing that high?
I mean, definitely. I don't know if the product itself is addictive. That again would take
I wasn't able to
research
find
and stuff,
anything one way or another because again, the research is just
if
lackluster.
you just look at what it's the portions of your nervous system it's activating, that you can get like there's a reason adrenaline junkies are called adrenaline junkies, right? So it's the same concept. Like you could get addicted to, again, I can't make a claim on this because I don't know about this specific product, but I could see it being a thing.
All right. And lastly is the when we invest section. Does the business model make sense? Does the science hold up? Do we trust the founders? I'm going to go straight no for all those.
Yeah, absolutely not. 100% no. So this is wild. This has been the wildest episode of the Decision Lab that I think we've had in a while. I hope you guys enjoyed the lab results section. Yeah,
pretty quick and easy. I think we did enough job explaining our position in earlier segments there on. So hopefully it wasn't too much of a surprise at the end when we're like, probably not for us.
Right.
I think we're hoping to do more episodes like this, more product type reviews. So let us know what you think in the comments.
Hell yeah. And thank you so much for hopping on with us for the Decision Lab, baby. If you like this no BS approach to science, hit subscribe and let us know what other products you want us or founders you want us to investigate. See you next time on Decision Lab. Peace.